So last year I had the honor to be on a panel at the White House. I've been selected along with a number of public school innovators. We were talking about education. Well, I come from the community college, and in particular I come from prison education, working with adult inmates. So when I first got this email and I heard about this selection, I was convinced that there was a mistake. So my family and I, we go to the White House, and we go up to security, and they can't find us on the list. So I turn to my wife and I say, I told you, I knew it, it was a mistake. Well, all of that is straightened out. It's really complicated there. And we're on the panel, and there's a question about behavior of students. And someone makes a comment about how their challenges with the behavior of students must be nothing compared to mine with our students in the prison. And I knew at that moment that I was in the right place. See, I had the opportunity to tell them, inmates make the best students. They do all their homework, they show up every day, and if they don't, I know where they are. And they never bring their cell phones to class. So, my wife is a psychotherapist, and I'm a dean of community at a community college. And as a side job, we also own and operate an independent preschool through middle school. And so our conversations can be very bizarre. I'll be talking about an issue that's come up at the prison. She'll be talking about something at the preschool or in the elementary school. And so our family slogan has become education from preschool to prison. And I want to draw on that experience today. Today, what I want to talk about is the future of prison education, both on how we can have more college in prison, but also have prison education be more like preschool. First, let me make the case for prison education. And fortunately, it's a really easy case. The RAND Corporation just completed a major study looking at prison education across the United States. And here's what they found. 100 inmates who release, 43 will recidivate. They'll return to prison. If they participate in prison education, 30 will recidivate. Now, 30 is still 1 in 3, and that is still far, far too high. But the key is in that 13 that don't come back. See, it's that 13 that means 13 victims that don't happen, 13 lives that aren't shattered, 13 properties not destroyed, 13 families that aren't torn apart. And it's in that 13 that we also see the return on investment. RAND estimates that for every dollar spent on prison education, there's a return on investment of $5. Here in Washington, our Washington State Institute for Public Policy says that for every dollar invested in vocational education, there'll be at least a $12 return. And that's a return both to taxpayers, to families, to society. It also, on an individual level, impacts the inmate who releases. That individual has a 13% higher rate of employment if they participated in any form of education, and they have a 28% higher rate of employment if they participate in a vocational education program. Prison education saves lives. Prison education saves money. Now, let me talk about my experience and how I can twist that into my vision for the future. So, for the last 6 years, I've been working as the education director at Clallam Bay and Olympic Corrections Center. And in those 6 years, we've been able to do things that we really would not have been able to do 10 years ago. We have an internet in a box that we've worked with other partners, where inmates are able to sit down and without ever being on the internet on the streets, can access the same kinds of resources that our students at our community college would be able to access on the streets. So they access Khan Academy, and they have an edited version of Wikipedia. They have access to a learning management system that's used at every community college in Washington State. They're able to be just like a community college student on our main campus. we've been able to use this to turn our prison campus into our Northwest campus. And it's changed how we operate. So if you could imagine what you could do with just taking just a little bit of these innovations of technology and start to look at what we know is working in graduate schools across the country. Let's take a low residency program. And many of you or some of you may have done a program like this. So picture a team of faculty, kind of your dream team of faculty, that could come to a prison and spend a week of face-to-face interaction with those students. They could bring with them simulations, sophisticated lab science simulations, because there are plenty of labs that we don't want to run in prisons. They're just not safe. But you could take that technology, you could combine it with that team of instructors, and develop that rapport. And then, using technology that we have now, we could secure an online classroom so that that dream team moves a few weeks later to another prison. And you start to build a series of concurrent online courses that started with that really very important connection that then continues throughout that semester. And you've now opened up the possibility to have history degrees, which happens to be where I come from. See, Mom, you can do something with a history degree. You can have science degrees, you can have engineering. There's so much more possible when we just change a little bit, make that small change, as we heard this morning, in how we deliver our services. What else can we do? So we take that dream team, and we also add to it competency-based degrees. And we take the life experience of inmates. See, our inmates come to us with a lifetime of experience. And while they're in prison, they gain a lifetime of experience. And we evaluate it through careful assessments, and we identify what are those skills that they have, what are those skills that they need. And you combine that with that low residency program, and now you can get that much closer to degrees and opening up the number of possibilities for our students. And then we add other technologies. So we added a tablet, a simple tablet, like an iPad kind of thing, that we load with all the lectures, all of the materials, the textbooks. In our case, we would use open educational resources because they come with the amazing price of free. And we would load that textbook with everything that an inmate student would need. So when a 2-week lockdown happens, the education doesn't end. And with that that tablet, we combine that with this form of education, and we expand those possibilities. And these are all using technologies that exist now, that we're just moving from the street and securely moving them into the prison. But then there's preschool. Preschools and prisons have a lot in common. They all have similar rules. Keep your hands and your feet to yourself. No biting, hitting, spitting. No running. Prisons have rec. Preschools have recess. Prisons have hobby craft. Preschools have arts and crafts. Prisons and preschools both have music, and they both have lots and lots of drama. But they also share one other thing in common. They're both about creating a space where the individual can learn or relearn how to be in the world. So let me draw on 2 examples from our preschool program. Many of you will remember having Lincoln log sets, those little logs with little pieces, and you put them together to build forts. So at our preschool, we recently made a real Lincoln log set, and I mean 6-foot-long Lincoln logs. And we did that intentionally, because the only way to make it work is for those children to work together, because no one child can move a 6-foot-long Lincoln log. And they have to work together to build. And so they learn through that exercise the joy of creating, when you get to create something, when you get to destroy something that you get the owner's permission. You have that opportunity to build together. Now, the other thing we know is that no significant learning happens without a significant relationship. And we know when you think back to your experience as a child, that it's those early relationships with those teachers that are so vital. So we take those two ideas, and how do we incorporate those into this future vision? Well, we do it in subtle ways. I used to work with an inmate who had committed absolutely terrible crimes. And even when he was incarcerated, he committed some terrible assaults. But he had changed, made some other decisions, and now he was working in our adult basic education classroom. And he was learning how to take cassette tapes. Some of you may not know what those are. I just realized that. And digitizing them and putting them next to books so that low literacy students could read and hear the words at the same time. It was really frustrating for him. Well, so as he's working through that, he'd come to me, Mr. Walsh, I don't know how to do this. And I'd say, I don't know how to do it either. Break it till it works. And he'd go back and he'd work on it and he'd work on it and he'd come to me and say, I broke it again. I've got to restore it. I broke it again, but I'm getting closer. I'm breaking it till it works. And he'd experiment with it in a safe environment. In our horticulture program, I had a student who had never once gardened, had never had anything to do with plants. And we know that horticulture is therapeutic. And he came to me, or I came to him, and he was showing me with just this utter joy on his face what he was able to bring into the world, a garden plot that he had planted, that he had taken care of. And at the same time, he was learning botany and biology. I had a student who I had expelled from our business program. It was really not a good fit for him there. And so he had eventually chosen to end up in our baking program. And the one thing I know about that baking program is I have an instructor who every day when I ask him how things are going, he says, I'm just having so much fun. And this student in that class could make the most beautiful braided breads that you've ever seen. He'd make challah, and I can guarantee we're the only challah producer for about 70 miles on the peninsula. He would make these breads that tasted amazing. And his life in the living units, his life in our classes were completely changed when he found that place where he could kinetically and artistically express himself. In our business classes, my instructors have spent far too much time finding every single TED Talk and putting it on our network to share with the students so that a student can go from an accounting software package to a TED Talk. They can go from business math, and then they can go and watch a podcast from Planet Money or some other kind of podcast. And they learn that they're in control of their learning, and they jump back and forth between these things. It's dynamic, it's fluid, but they're in control of it. A few years ago, I started a computer programming program, and I had pictured a very, very traditional program. Everybody would start at the same time, and they'd end at the same time. There'd be lectures, there'd be textbooks, there'd be big fancy projects. Well, we found that wasn't working. So we changed courses, and we took the same ideas and same outcomes, and we started teaching computer game design and development as a way to teach computer programming. If you were to go into that classroom now, you would see it's very much like a preschool. Some students are playing games, some students are breaking games, some students are writing games, some are doing music, some are doing art. All of them are learning, and they're learning high-level computer programming languages, JavaScript, C++, C#. The learning there is intensive, but it's student-directed. They form their own teams, just like those giant Lincoln Logs, and they figure out how to build what they want to build. But I have to tell you, I always worry that one day the associate superintendent's going to stop by and she's going to look in and she's going to say, wow, they look like they're having fun. Don't they know this is prison? Thank you very much.